What's going on, everyone? Great in here with the LPM podcast. We got an awesome guest for you today. We got Romsa in the building. What's going on, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to
Thanks.
be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy life. Everybody's so busy with Flair coming out and family and weekends and everything that it's a crazy time right now. How have you been perceiving the release of Flair?
Oh, it's been exciting. I mean, at least from my perspective, living in this time that we do, where social media, you can actually see people's response to the product.
Right.
It's incredible. I mean, the community of collectors have been so kind and so generous with their praise, and it's been unexpected, the amount of positive feedback versus absolutely no negative feedback.
Right.
So it's been really cool. It's been great.
That's awesome. Could you list for the people what characters that you did for this product?
Absolutely. For the Power Blast series of cards, I did Cyclops, I did Wolverine, I did Mighty Thor, I did I'm drawing a blank here. There was a couple of others that I did. I did Daredevil for the base set. I did Rogue for the base set. I did the Invisible Woman for the base set. I did Mr. Fantastic for the base set. Silver Surfer for the base set.
Oh yeah.
I also did Sabretooth for the base set. And let me think here. I feel like I'm missing a few. I'll tell you what I've got in front of me here.
Got your list. So Ty, so you know, in the community, I am the Sabretooth collector. I collect.
Yeah.
My only character is Sabretooth, so I have a pretty large Sabretooth collection.
Yeah, right on, man. I love Sabretooth. He's a great character. I mean, him and Wolverine, as far as villain and hero, have always been my favorite duo all my life. So
that's
very
part
cool.
of what I want to talk to you about today, is that the Sabretooth you did for this set, I would, as kind of like someone who has a lot of Sabretooth cards and has seen a lot of images, this one's kind of perfect. You nailed it
Thanks.
as far as build, costume, face, all of it. You like, and so what I was wondering is, what is your background with with Sabretooth and Wolverine? You seem to have nailed it perfectly. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your process and your background with the two?
Okay. Well, so my benchmark, kind of my guiding light for what an X-Men character should look like, will and has always been Jim Lee. I say he's the reason I started loving the X-Men back in the '90s with that series one X-Men card set. It was just life changing for me, and um, I just can't see in my head, no matter how much I try, another version of those characters. And and everyone else pretty much knows that his work influenced the animated series, which was basically my childhood. Right? It was
Our child, absolutely.
right. Yeah. So forever in my mind, it's these characters look that way.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to capture my perfect version of Sabretooth and Wolverine and Rogue and Cyclops and all the and Storm. I got to do the Power Blast Storm as well. Just the way that the kid me would have loved to see these things in a card, right?
I love it. Could you give us three characteristics that a Wolverine image needs to have?
There's three absolute main characteristics for me, and the first is the shape of the mask. And the way that it sits on the face. I've seen so many versions of that, right? So, and they're all cool. They're all cool. But the way that Jim Lee drew the mask, proportionally, and the way it wrapped around his head, I'm always seeking to achieve that. And I think that stood the test of time, because just about every Marvel Legends Wolverine that comes out is holding that look, to the T. So there's the mask. That's one.
Yeah.
The second thing for me is the proportions of his body. Like, he has to have more upper body mass and a shorter leg stature to look right for me.
Right.
I get the world's infatuation with that that Hugh Jackman, very tall Wolverine, but that's not the Wolverine in my head, right? That's not
That's
the
I
comic book
agree.
version.
I agree
Yeah.
completely.
And then the last thing for me that has to be done right is the claws, right? I'm not a fan of those curvy claws, like when people draw them with a curve. I'm not a fan of those claws that they look very much like needles, right?
Yeah,
They've got to have a blade, like a substance to them that I can believe, that
right.
these things are dangerous.
I love it. Can I ask you the same question about Sabretooth just because that's my guy?
Yeah, so for Sabretooth, the biggest thing for me when I'm approaching him is he's got to have the upper body stature, and he's got to be very top heavy. He's got to have those broad shoulders, and that mane that he's got that he wears in that 90s costume supports that, right? It makes him look huge up top.
Totally.
Um, and it's got to be right.
Yeah.
The second thing is, his eyes. They've got to be minus pupils, completely whited out for
Oh,
it to be
just
right
made
for
me so
me.
happy. It just made me so happy. That's my number. That's my number one.
Cool. And then the last thing is his hands. Like for me, they have to look dangerous and threatening. Like not in the same way Wolverine is, but I've seen renditions of Sabretooth where he has no claws, and
Right.
I'm like, wow, that doesn't make sense to me. They're weapons. These are his weapons, and
These are
and
his weapons.
so yeah.
Very, very cool. Those were both great answers. I really appreciate. I love asking artists that, especially when they did a great version of a character, because they usually, if I consider it a great version of it, what we like about it is the same. I really appreciate that. With the medium that you work on, you're primarily working in digital media, correct?
Well, for this, yes.
Yeah.
I did not have a lot of time to do these cards, and when I was given the opportunity, they actually asked me how many I wanted to do. Um, I immediately my mind went to, oh, I've got to do these traditional. I do a lot of gouache paintings.
Cool.
However, once they told me how much time I had versus how many I wanted to cram into the set, I was like, okay, I got to be realistic about this. If I know that I'm going to be working 70-hour work weeks in my
Yes,
day job, how can I get this done? So
absolutely.
for this, like all pieces that I do, I approached it though traditionally. The prelims for every piece, they're all done traditionally. I scan them in, and then I paint on top of them. So
Oh, so sorry, you started them digitally and then they're finished in paint?
no. I started them traditionally
Oh, okay.
with a yeah, the old school pencil and paper, and
Right.
I scan that in, and then I paint on top.
Gotcha. Very, very cool. I think that people in the community sometimes wonder why everything isn't just done on board with oil paint. And I'm glad you brought up the time because the
Yeah.
can you tell us how much time you got, or is that private?
Oh, I'm happy to. Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about the timeline for the sequence of events that led up to Marvel Flair and how it kind of panned out, because it might help with the understanding. So initially, I was approached by Upper Deck, and they gave me 10 cards, and that was the limit. That's what they told me. That's all we're kind of willing to give you as kind of a newer artist, and I totally understood. I felt comfortable with that, but I only had 3 months to do that. But
Wow.
during that same 3 months, they approached me to do platinum. And so platinum's deadlines did not coincide with um, Flair's deadlines, and they
Right.
kind of run parallel to one another. So I took 10 cards from platinum as well,
Wow.
and then I managed to finish everything up. And then they came back to me to do the Power Blast cards, and I ended up doing four or five Power Blast cards.
You've been busy.
Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, not a moment of that was it was work. It was
Right.
great.
So my question, when you're working on two different sets that are as different as Flare and Platinum are, do you change your style of work for each set, or do you keep it very consistent?
I keep it consistent. I want it to be first and foremost my work. I'm representing the character
Yeah.
for the way that the fans love and know the character, but the work I like for it to be recognizable. Like, oh, that's Ty, or that's hopefully they recognize it as Thai,
I
not somebody
I
else.
think that you're definitely getting to that point where your style is recognizable by people. I know when I saw your
Cool.
saber tooth, and I've seen other images that you've done before, I was like, that's starting to become really recognizable. That's a great
Awesome.
identifier when you're an artist.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I, I'm sure every artist to some degree worries that because, we're all influenced by others and,
Right.
my repertoire of talents is years and years of looking at the greatest of the greats. Right. And
Well,
so
that's how
you
it's
always
done.
worry that, yeah, yeah.
That's how it's done. Are you a traditionally trained artist? Did you go to art school?
Yes, I did. I went to school in Savannah, Georgia, at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I went to school to make comic books. That's what I wanted to do.
Cool.
So I majored in sequential art, and I did it for a while. Right after I got out of college, I ended up getting married, and we were fairly young. And I started hitting conventions like crazy, and I ended up picking up some comic work with independent publishers. And I had a few like very near miss type situations with big names in the industry. I won't tell you their names, where they they told me I'd be the next great thing, and it never happened. And um, I realized that I working 18-hour days, and I was kind of spinning my wheels, that I had to find something else. And luckily, at the time, Konami. I don't know if you're familiar with Konami, but the video game company, they're famous for Contra and Metal Gear and
Cool.
yeah, and
I played
Castlevania.
Contra in my life. I'll tell you that.
Sure. So I joined them, full time as an artist, and I did that for almost 15 years, and
Wow.
it was a great life. I got to have two sons, get to raise them and spend time with them. So comic books became more of a side hustle and a passion than a full time thing.
It's I feel like people are very fortunate when they study a field and end up working in it. So many millennials went to school and did an undergrad in something that they're currently not working in that field. So
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
thrilled to hear that you landed yourself a position in something that aligned with your education.
yeah. I know. I feel very lucky and I'm grateful that I went to school with so many talented people that are in the same situation that you just mentioned. They're
Absolutely.
not even making art, and it breaks my heart. So,
For reference, I have an undergraduate degree and I drill for oil, so I did not use my degree. So a very different
oh
lifestyle.
man.
Um,
Well, you did okay
yeah,
and a good
that's right.
life.
Something I wanted to ask you was, what was the first licensed Marvel product you worked on?
First licensed Marvel product. Marvel has been a tough nut for me to crack. So
Yeah,
I think my first licensed Marvel product has to be Platinum or
awesome,
and Flair.
awesome.
Yeah, DC, I did work for them years and years ago for their Versus line. But Marvel I just could never crack. It was tough.
They're a tough nut to crack for sure. Did you have sketch cards in any of these sets?
No, no, I never did.
Is that something you're interested in, or are sketch cards a whole nother beast?
It's something I don't know anything about. I do see the work. I have friends that do sketch cards, and it's very cool stuff.
Right.
I am in awe, how little time and these they have to make them, and they're creating basically a traditional piece. So it's pretty
Wild.
cool. But I'd love to try them. I'd love to do them. I've just
Yeah.
never been offered that opportunity. So.
Right. Oh, cool. I'm really hoping that if that's something you want to do, that comes up. What's next for you? Are you currently working on any projects that you want to talk about? I know that with Marvel you can't name what you're working on, but are there any personal project of yours that you're working on you want to talk about?
Um, Nothing I'm ready to talk about yet, but I am obviously working on my personal project. I have two things going. One of which is my personal magnum opus kind of book that I'm doing of my own,
Wow.
and that's years out though. That's a lifelong quest for me.
Is it hard to be, I'm going to call it a freelance artist, like a working artist, and still do projects for yourself?
Um, yes, I think so. It's it's interesting because it's weird. I'm trying to think of how to approach talking about it because it's kind of a, if you, it's essential that you do your own personal things to kind of broaden your chances of doing the things that you want to be commissioned to do.
Right.
Um, I'll use case in point here, right? So when COVID started, right, a lot of us were working from home, and I started doing the X-Men portraits, and I just started doing them for fun, like as like a kind of a labor of love, thinking, one day I'm going to get to 100 portraits, and I'm close, I'm very close, and I'm gonna publish them. I'm gonna get the rights, and I'm gonna publish these things.
Amazing.
And I started doing them, and all this work started coming in, and it was because I was doing something that was personal, and I loved it. Um, so it's weird. It's kind of a catch-22, right? If you don't do personal things,
Right.
maybe they don't see who you really are, or who you want to be as an artist, and you could be missed.
Sorry, I had to sneeze there. Absolutely. I
Oh,
think
bless you.
I
Yeah.
think that's a great answer. Something that I've noticed about work that's done on your own creative projects versus a licensed one is that that's a skill building time. And then when you're doing a product for a company or for a commission, you're applying the skills that you've learned. It's less of a growing experience skill wise. Could you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, in addition to what you were just saying, how much my other work influences the work that I want to do, like the creative work I want to do. I A lot of my work during my day job involves doing 3D and doing animation and things that have nothing to do with comics, but
Right.
have aided in my ability to do better art for
Right.
comics. So it's pretty
It's
cool.
interesting. I
Yeah,
think that good artists draw life experience into their work to get better. I think that's one of the quintessential things about being a good visual artist.
100%. Yeah.
What is a skill that you would like to learn, or a medium that you would like to learn in art right now that you're not currently doing, whether it be block printing, or is there anything that's on the list that you're like, wow, I'd really like to learn how to do that?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's always, I mean, if I ever get to a point where I feel like I've learned enough,
Right.
I'm making a big mistake.
I
I'm
hear you.
messing up somehow. Um, yeah, to be honest with you, what I would like to do is I'd like to try my hand again at storytelling in traditional format of comics. It's something that I've kind of gotten away from. I've gotten away more into illustration and painting, and more of like a single piece type work. I'd love to give another go at the illustration for sequential art.
Love it. Absolutely love it. What would be a tip that you would have for a young artist looking at this today? Someone who's fresh out of school, what would be a tip that you would want them to know from you?
I think the biggest thing that I tell all artists that are young and trying to find their way in this world is that if you want to do this, in all seriousness, you need to do this all the time, right? This needs to be your life, and if you're not breathing, and if you're not living for the next piece that you make, it's probably not the best fit for you. So maybe think about what you're doing, um, because it can become, if that is not your approach, it can become an uphill climb, a battle your whole life
Right.
to stay motivated, and to meet deadlines, because then it's work. And if you're not willing to put in the time, and if you don't love this stuff that much, then maybe don't do it.
I think it's interesting. So I think that there's a lot of young people out there who enter a career such as anything creative, and one of the biggest holdbacks that they have is networking. What was something that networked for you that worked really well? How did you get your first big break and start to meet people?
You know what? It was as an artist, it's difficult to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And I did not willingly do it. But my wife is different, and so she dragged me to conventions, and she's like, "You're going to go, and we're going to get a table, and we're going to do your best, to kind of promote your work." And I think that was the biggest thing I did as a young artist, and it got me a lot of work. Um, Otherwise, I probably would never been noticed.
That's a really good tip. So I think you're also saying you should probably get married.
Well, I mean, in my case, it didn't hurt. It was
Right.
great.
Married men live
Because
longer. It's a fact. It's a fact.
absolutely, and she balances me out in ways that I'm at a severe deficit otherwise.
Having a supportive partner when you're doing something creative, I'm sure, is essential.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and she's my biggest fan as well as my biggest promoter, and
Very
yeah,
cool.
it's great.
Who is a character that you have yet to do that you would really like to do?
There's a lot, to be
Give us
honest
top
with you.
three. Give us top three.
Top three. Okay, I really, really wanted to paint Gambit because in a professional way, right? Like where I'm being commissioned to do the work, and it'll be some kind of publication. Um, I I love that character, and I've just never been given the opportunity to do it.
Right.
I'd also love the opportunity to work on Jean Grey. I think Jean Grey would be a lot of fun, and I could kill that. I could make that look amazing.
Yeah, I love,
And then
love it.
yeah, and then the last one I would say, let's see. Gosh, there's so many. Um, I always thought it'd be great, and I love this character. To do any, actually, you know what? I'll leave it kind of broad. Any of the New Mutants. I love
Cool.
the New Mutants, so I'll take any of them.
That's awesome. Shout out Matt Fuller. Um, so on that note, I'd like to ask you: is there a character that you think is one of the most difficult characters to draw?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know that they're so difficult to draw as that the picture in my mind looks a certain way, and I can't always achieve that picture that's in my mind.
Gotcha.
Um, there's many of those actually. Shoot, let me pick one who I think is the most difficult. Um, Gosh, I struggle with. I don't know why, but I struggle with Magneto. I struggle with Professor Xavier. I struggle with.
I think Professor X is a very challenging character to draw because how many poses can you possibly put Charles Xavier in?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of poses you can put him in that are that
Right?
interesting, but there's a structure to his anatomy, his
Yeah.
face, that makes it look like him to me.
Real
Yeah,
talk. Could anybody other than Patrick Stewart play Professor X? I mean, really?
well, I didn't think that. I can't remember his name. I'm drawing a
I know who
blank, but
you're talking. He did a great job. He did a great job.
yeah, I thought he did a good job too. Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, when they showed him bald in what was it, the Apocalypse, was it?
yeah,
Or yeah, that he looked goofy. I'll admit, not as convincing as Patrick
right.
Stewart, but
Patrick Stewart
yeah.
definitely is very convincing. Something I like to end on with asking artists who are working today is, what are your thoughts about how AI has crept into the art world? How do you feel about AI? And don't be shy. Like, I really do want to hear your honest opinion about it.
To be honest, it's a bit of a disappointment to me that we're dealing with this as artists right now. It's the last thing that I saw coming, to be honest with you.
I agree.
Um, I thought the creative parts of life were going to be the last to be touched by artificial intelligence, but I was wrong, and it disappoints me when I go on Instagram and I see all these AI feeds, and the work is not bad. It's pretty good, and I'm just like, man, I worked all these years. I put in 30 years of my life to get to this level, and this AI is replicating my style, is replicating. I've had guys that have AI pages that create AI work that have reached out to me, and they've told me that they use my work in their queue, or in their the way that they, I forget what they call it, but where they put together the words, the combinations for the style, and what they want to be generated. Their prompts, excuse me, their prompts, and it's so disappointing to me. And I'm just like, it
Very
Yeah.
disappointing. Sort of the reason that I want to bring it up is because part of what I'm hoping to do with my channel is to bring a bit of awareness about this to our community that collects, because us in the card collecting community who are supporting our artist friends and we're fans of your work, it's really important to be able to identify pieces that come from a trained artist such as yourself and something that was plugged in with prompts into a computer. I don't want to support that. I don't want anything to do with
Yeah.
that. And I hope that the people who are fans of the channel and fans of Marvel stuff educate themselves a little bit on how to identify pieces that look off. And I've talked to Palumbo about this. What are some prompts that you can give us that are kind of ways of being like, there's something wrong with this? This is AI generated. What's something you notice?
Yeah, the telltale giveaways for me that something is AI generated is inconsistencies in anatomy and pose, right?
Right.
So they'll have this beautiful rendition of a face that obviously the AI has lifted from some very talented artist, and then they have this ridiculous looking body structure that is attached to it, and I'm just like, I mean, nobody is that good at drawing a face and
I,
painting a face, but that poor at the rest of the
right.
body, it doesn't make any sense. So I would say inconsistencies, right? That's a big one for me. The other one, at least from my perception standpoint, that I perceive is the quantity of the work. That quantity that they pump this stuff out, it's impossible for a real artist to do. Um, it's a it's a shame that it's funny because I follow two AI feeds, and not because I enjoy the work, it's because I want to see what they're doing. And what disappoints me about this is that I don't know if you've heard the recent news about Meta kind of releasing information that they're going to be training their AI off of all of the posts and feeds
Oh,
of people. Yeah,
no,
and
I'm not.
it's a big deal. So you've probably seen all these artists that are jumping to Kara, right? That's why. It's because this is what Instagram has chosen to do. But I've noticed for some time a regularity to the way that Instagram is injecting these AI images into my feed over priority over traditional or real artists. So those two AI channels that I'm following, they show up every post I see it, but then I don't see great posts by Jim Lee or Mark Silvestri or Todd McFarlane. I don't see them, and I have to hunt for them, and it's really kind of worrisome. It's
It is. Absolutely. It leads me to asking, do you think that AI is going to discourage the next generation of people to go into classic illustration and to do the education and get trained?
I am actually. I'm worried about it because there are a lot of really big channels in Instagram that are known for doing art that they are promoting AI, and they're saying how that prompts are going to become their another person's art. And I'm like, no, that's another person's theft. They're using words and prompts to steal from other people that have worked their whole lives to create images that your AI can steal from.
You know,
And
yeah, I agree with you completely. I agree with you completely.
yeah,
You opened with how artists frequently look at one another's work, especially to the past, in order to find their influence. But the AI situation, there's nothing influential about it. It's straight up theft. It's straight up stealing. It's copyright plagiarism.
it is. That's what it is. And at the end of the day, um, it's it feels like it's unstoppable.
On the note of it being unstoppable, that sort of brings us to what I was saying, where we need people in the hobby to be looking for identifiers about that, because I don't know if AI images have crept into Marvel cards yet. I've never seen a card before where I was like, oh, that was created with AI. But I think it's really important for us to be diligent about that, because we support our artists in the hobby. We don't want anything to do with people just plugging in prompts. And if you do, that's your problem. I don't want anything to do with you. But I think
Yeah.
that's your problem. So I really hope that that hasn't crept into Marvel cards yet, and I hope people are diligent in looking for it.
Yeah, I hope it never does. It will ruin, in my mind, the core of what these cards are and represent. It time and time again, it's been reserved for real artists and for
Yeah,
those who care about the craft, care about the characters, they care about the hobby, they care about the audience, that's going to receive this. Um, a thing that which no artificial intelligence gives one care about, and
right. Keyword
it's
being artificial.
artificial, and real people throughout generations have been making these cards and supporting this hobby. Um, I just I don't care what a machine or what a computer or what an AI thinks I'm
Right.
going to like. I don't care.
You know
It's
what?
soulless.
I'm so glad we got to have this conversation, Ty. I really feel for the artists that are currently experiencing this, and I know that there are people that oftentimes don't want to speak up about something because they don't want to seem as though they're against it. We're flat out against this one. Like, this one's no good. So you heard it here. I'm really glad we got to have this conversation, Ty. Is there anything that you want to close on?
No, just an appreciation for having me. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. If you guys like what you saw here, please go and find Ty. I'm going to include all of his links down in the description. Follow him, subscribe to him. Make sure you're keeping up with it. Let's support these artists. And if you like this channel, please subscribe and like. And we'll keep making some cool podcasts with you guys. Ty, thank you so much for being a guest today. We're going to wrap it up there, and we'll have more conversations like this another day.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care.
See
Bye,
you.
everyone.